Welcome to Book Time with Ryan. I am Ryan, and today I'll be talking about The Hour of Fate by Susan Berfield. This is Theodore Roosevelt, J.P. Morgan, and the battle to transform American capitalism. I'm coming from the road. Not totally. I'm just charging my car, so you get to experience it kind of on the road and an empty car seat. So this book was recommended to me by Judy, one of my old coworkers, a while ago. I finally read it. I was just in the mood and I really liked it. As you can tell by the subtitle, Theodore Roosevelt, J.P. Morgan, big part of this book. I knew a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt, knew a little bit about J.P. Morgan. I do have the House of Morgan book, but I haven't read it yet, which I'm sure I will learn a lot more once I do that. But I knew a little bit about both of them. This is really cool because it talks to you about where Theodore Roosevelt came from. I guess he didn't like the name Teddy. And where J.P. Morgan came from. It really gives you some background into, they both came from privileged lives. And they kind of traveled in some of the same circles. But their path to get where they were, that we kind of know them from, took a while and was an interesting kind of path that I was not aware of. So Teddy Roosevelt, definitely wealthy individual, became the president, obviously, with the death of William McKinley, that's how this book opens, with the death of President McKinley. I knew that he died. I didn't know how, I didn't know where, I didn't know when. I should have, kind of, but I didn't. And at this point, it was the beginning of his second term with a new vice president, Teddy Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt was considered somebody who wasn't really going to mess things up because the vice president role really didn't have power. And he was kind of a disruptor, so they thought, hey, if we put him in the VP spot, he's not going to have enough power or enough of a podium to really get his name and his agenda out there. Little did they know that McKinley would die pretty early on in his presidency, and Teddy Roosevelt came to power through that and then won re-election. McKinley was a well-liked person in the party, was fairly pro-business, and Teddy Roosevelt had this populist streak through him. And one of his kind of foundational points of view was that everyone should get a square deal. Everyone should get the same kind of protections, whether no matter what your financial background is. And he felt that the super rich were getting a pass on being accountable. And at this time, this was the Gilded Age, kind of the tail end of the robber barons and the railroad trusts, but they're still very much in power at this point. It just they've already kind of reached the max power, and this was the kind of the beginning of the fall. And Teddy Roosevelt's known as like the trust buster. And the reality is that presidents that came after him, especially Howard Taft, were actually more pro trust busting than Teddy Roosevelt. But Teddy Roosevelt's known for it more. And that's probably because a lot of what he did was a lot of managing his image. I mean, it was definitely more populist than what had come before him, and also took more of an active role of making his agenda the agenda of the country. J.P. Morgan, not the richest person. We think of him as a super rich person on the level of like a Rockefeller or Vanderbilt. He's not there, but very influential. Far more influential than his income or his level of wealth would suggest. So he is involved with so many different trusts, so many different companies and organizations. He is involved with so many different deals, and you kind of get this feeling for the fact that he wants America to be a competitive, rich country. I think he also sees he's not a free market kind of guy. He's a pro-capitalism, but he also likes to protect his interests. And that's where you get some of the headbutting between the two, too, is that part of that desire to protect his own interests collide with the interest of others and the interest of the markets as a whole. And that's where you see a lot of the friction between Teddy Roosevelt and J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan also is not used to being challenged at this point in his life, and Roosevelt did not shy away from that. So you get this a lot of what's talked about in this book is kind of the headbutting between the two in Roosevelt's push to really implement the Sherman Antitrust Act and going after railroads, and especially a railroad deal in the Northwest that involved Harriman, Morgan, and Pine, maybe? Am I blanking? I'm kind of maybe getting that mixed up. So that's what you see in this. You see Roosevelt become the man that we know him as, even from his younger days when he was riding around during the Spanish-American War with his Rough Riders. It was just a really interesting period to look at and to find how they both not only butted heads but also had to work together sometimes. And those interactions between Theodore Roosevelt and J.P. Morgan really helped solidify capitalism in the U.S. and determine the way that capitalism looked in the future, including now in some ways. It's been a long time since then, but so I really enjoyed it. I give it 5 stars. Judy, thank you for recommending it. It is interesting to read about these two foundational people, living in 2025 and seeing how things are now and how they were before and where they may go and where they've come from. So, The Hour of Fate by Susan Berfield. Well done, Judy. Thanks. And have a good one.